I messaged the family group chat, my surgery's on the 15th, just need a ride home. My sister shot back, lol, like we'd skip Cabo for that? My mom chimed in, don't start guilt tripping, this vacation's been set for months. I only replied, understood. But what the nurse told her when she later called the hospital turned that Cabo trip upside down. Imagine this, you're sitting alone in a doctor's office, staring at your phone, tears blurring the words that just confirmed you have cancer. And then, the ultimate punch to the gut, your family group chat lights up, not with comfort, but with a cheerful LOL from your sister, dismissing your urgent surgery because their Cabo vacation was more important. That was my reality, Amber Williams, at 31 years old, and it shattered me to my core. How did I get here? How did I become the person whose family would choose a beach trip over a life-altering medical emergency? My hands trembled, not just from the fear of a terrifying diagnosis, but from a deeper, colder realization I was utterly, profoundly alone. Before I dive deeper into the phone call that changed everything, tell me in the comments below, have you ever felt utterly betrayed by the people who should have had your back? If so, hit that subscribe button, more stories of resilience and finding your voice are coming. I always knew my place in the family. It was carved out early, a narrative my parents had perfected over the years. My younger sister, Heather, was the delicate, precious one, seemingly incapable of fault. My older brother, Jake, the golden child, destined for monumental success. And me? I was just Amber, the middle child, the dependable one, the one who always had it together. But that wasn't a compliment, it was their convenient excuse for treating us so differently. Growing up in our suburban Chicago home, the pattern was relentless. Heather wanted ballet lessons? Mom and Dad magically found the money. Jake needed a fancy new computer for college? Poof, it appeared. But when I earned a partial scholarship to an art school in New York, my dreams were abruptly shoved to the backseat. Your father threw his back out at work, my mother, Sandra, had said during my senior year, her voice laced with expectation. We need you close to home, Amber. You've always been so responsible. Responsible. The word felt like a cage, a burden. So, I stifled my passion, stayed local, attended community college, and rushed home daily to care for Dad. I told myself, it's fine. Family comes first, even as a part of me withered inside, quiet and unseen. Then came Jake, with his dazzling, deceptive smile. He needed money for his next big thing, a mobile app that would surely make us rich. He didn't go to Mom and Dad first. He came to me. You always save everything, he'd charmed. Come on, Amber, this is a sure thing. I'll pay you back double. My life savings, $15,000 I'd painstakingly hoarded for years, hoping to eventually restart my dream of art school, vanished into his pocket. The app crashed and burned in 8 months. The money? Never seen again. When I cautiously brought it up a year later, Mom swooped in like a protective hawk. Why are you being so petty, Amber? Your brother took a risk. That's life. You don't need to make him feel worse. No one, not once, ever seemed to care how I felt. Heather's exploitation was more insidious, a slow drain rather than a sudden theft. She'd call me at 2 a.m., sobbing about a relationship crisis, expecting me to be her therapist until dawn. She'd casually volunteer me to babysit her friends' kids without a word to me first. She'd borrow my clothes, returning them stained or damaged. You should be flattered I want to wear your things, she'd scoff when I dared to object. It's not like you have anywhere special to go. Ouch. That one landed hard, because deep down, it held a painful grain of truth. Between working full-time as a freelance graphic designer and being the family's resident emotional support system, my social life was a desolate wasteland. My last serious relationship, with Paul, withered precisely because of this imbalance. Your family takes advantage of you, Amber, he'd said during our breakup. And you let them. I can't compete with that. He was right, and it stung more than I ever let on. I moved out at 26, escaping to a tiny, 400-square-foot apartment 20 minutes away. It was nothing glamorous, a kitchenette, a bathroom door that hit the toilet, but it was mine. I painted the walls a soothing sage green, set up my workspace by a window overlooking a small courtyard, and found solace in the quiet company of Milo, my rescue tabby. My graphic design business was a struggle at first, but I was fiercely determined. I worked 16-hour days, designed logos, created marketing materials, even illustrated a children's book. Slowly, I built a client base, earning enough to live comfortably, if modestly. But the family dynamic? It clung to me like a persistent shadow. Mom would call, "Can you come help Dad set up his new TV?" Never mind, Jake lived closer. Heather would text, "Can you pick up my prescriptions?" So swamped with yoga. I always said yes. Saying no meant weeks of suffocating guilt trips and passive-aggressive jabs. "That's just how families work, Amber," Mom would lecture whenever I tried to establish a boundary. "We help each other. Your brother and sister would do the same for you." Except, they never did. When I had the flu last winter, barely able to crawl out of bed, no one offered soup or medicine. My car broke down in a snowstorm? Jake was too busy, so I shelled out $60 for an Uber. When a major client dropped me, leaving me devastated and vulnerable, Heather cut me off because her favorite TV show was starting. I became an expert at hiding my disappointment, at swallowing my hurt whole. I learned to expect nothing, so I could never be let down. I cultivated self-sufficiency to a fault, refusing to ask for help even when I was genuinely drowning. I was the strong one, after all. The responsible one. The one who always had it together. Or so they thought. None of them saw me crying silently in my car after family gatherings. None of them knew about the therapy sessions I'd started last year, desperately trying to untangle why I kept giving to people who only ever took. None of them realized how profoundly lonely I felt, even surrounded by them at holiday dinners. "You're so lucky to be so independent," Mom once mused at Thanksgiving, as I washed dishes alone while everyone else watched football. Heather and Jake still need so much guidance. I wanted to hurl a plate against the wall. I wanted to scream, "I need guidance too. I need support. I need someone to put me first, just once." But I smiled and nodded. Because that's what Amber did. Amber kept the peace. Amber didn't make waves. Not until the day I found a lump in my throat, and everything irrevocably changed. It was a Tuesday night in April. I'd been hunched over my drawing tablet for 14 hours, chasing a deadline. When I finally stood to stretch, my reflection in the window caught my eye. The setting sun cast an odd shadow across my neck, highlighting a small, undeniable bulge on the right side. I touched it. It wasn't a trick of the light. A firm lump, just below my Adam's apple. I swallowed, and it moved. "Probably nothing," I told Milo, whose green eyes watched me intently. "Just a swollen gland from being tired." But in the days that followed, other symptoms emerged: relentless exhaustion, even after 8 hours of sleep, a constant need to swallow twice to get food down, a raspy voice during client calls, forcing me to clear my throat repeatedly. After a week of monitoring, and countless frantic hours Googling symptoms, I finally made an appointment with my primary care physician. I didn't tell my family. Why worry them over what was probably nothing? Besides, Mom was knee-deep in planning Heather's birthday bash, and Dad was consumed by Jake's upcoming job interview at a prestigious tech company. My concerns simply didn't fit into their busy lives. Dr. Melissa Carter, a petite woman with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor, examined the lump. "How long has this been here, Amber?" she asked, making notes. "About a week," I replied, "but it could have been longer." She listened to my symptoms, her expression thoughtful. Then she sat on her stool, looking me squarely in the eye. "I want to send you for an ultrasound and some blood work. It could be several things, but with a thyroid nodule of this size, we need to rule out anything serious." The word serious hung heavy in the air, a terrifying ghost. I wanted to ask if she meant cancer, but the word choked in my throat. Is there someone who can come with you to these appointments? She asked gently. My mind instantly flashed to my family, Mom, stressed and making it about herself, Heather, offering useless wellness tips and essential oils, Jake, an awkward pat on the shoulder before changing the subject. No, I said, I'll be fine on my own. And so, the journey began, just me and my fear. The ultrasound was cold, clinical. The technician's face, a mask of professional neutrality. Your doctor will receive the results in a few days, was all she offered. Then came the blood work, 5 vials drawn from my arm, testing for things I barely understood. I sat alone in the waiting room, sipping apple juice, a hollow dread growing inside me. 3 days later, Dr. Carter called personally. Amber, I'd like you to come in to discuss your results. Would tomorrow morning work for you? My heart plummeted. Doctors don't call personally for good news. That night, sleep was a stranger. I lay awake, Milo a comforting weight beside me, imagining every terrifying possibility. By morning, I was convinced of the worst. And Dr. Carter confirmed it. The ultrasound shows a 4-centimeter nodule on your right thyroid lobe, she explained, showing me the grainy black and white images. Your blood work indicates some thyroid dysfunction. Given the size and appearance, we need a biopsy to determine if it's cancerous. Cancer. I finally uttered the word out loud. You think I have cancer? We need more information, she responded, ever diplomatic. Thyroid nodules are common, most are benign, but we need to be thorough. The fine needle aspiration biopsy was scheduled for the following week. I researched it, learned it was quick, moderately painful. What the articles didn't prepare me for was the raw vulnerability of lying there, neck exposed, alone in a room full of strangers, about to have a needle plunged into my throat. Small pinch for the local anesthetic, the radiologist narrated. Now some pressure as we insert the sampling needle. Hold very still. I focused on a water stain on the ceiling, trying to transform it into a rabbit. The pain was more than moderate, a sharp, persistent ache that made my eyes water. The nurse noticed, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. You're doing great. Almost done. Afterward, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, an ice pack against my neck, fear a lead weight in my chest. 72 hours for results. 3 days of agonizing waiting, of my mind conjuring every worst-case scenario. When Sunday dinner rolled around, I called Mom with a sore throat. It was easier than explaining the truth, easier than watching their fleeting concern turn to relief when they realized it demanded nothing of them. The call came Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Carter's number on my screen. I stepped onto my tiny balcony, closing the door against Milo's escape. Amber, I have your biopsy results, she began, and I knew, just from her tone, that my life was about to split in two. The pathology shows papillary thyroid carcinoma. It's a form of thyroid cancer. I sank onto my balcony chair, my legs suddenly useless beneath me. The good news, she continued, is that this type of thyroid cancer is highly treatable, especially when caught early. You'll need surgery to remove the affected part of your thyroid, possibly the entire gland. Her voice became a blur of medical terms. All I could hear was one echoing phrase, *I have cancer. And I am completely alone, *. Do you have any questions, Amber? Dr. Carter asked, pulling me back. How soon does the surgery need to happen? I managed to croak. As soon as possible. I'll refer you to Dr. Thompson, one of the best thyroid surgeons in the area. Within hours, his assistant called. Consultation on Thursday. Earliest surgery date, the 15th, just 2 weeks away. It was only after I hung up that the practical implications hit me with the force of a physical blow. The surgery was outpatient, but I wouldn't be allowed to drive myself home due to the anesthesia. I'd need someone to pick me up, someone to stay with me at least the first night. I'd need to ask for help from my family. The thought made my stomach clench. That evening, I paced my apartment like a caged animal, rehearsing endless scenarios. Call mom directly? Text my siblings individually? Downplay the seriousness to avoid drama, or lay bare the terrifying truth? Finally, I decided the family group chat was my safest bet. It felt less vulnerable, somehow, less like I was singling anyone out. Milo purred on my lap as I typed and deleted messages, too dramatic, too casual, too vague, too detailed. At 9:30 p.m., I found the right words and hit send. Hey everyone, just wanted to let you know I'm having surgery to remove a thyroid nodule on the 15th. It's outpatient, but I'll need someone to drive me home afterward. Let me know if anyone is available. I stared at my phone, watching the ticks. Delivered. Read by Mom, Dad, Jake, Heather. I waited. For typing bubbles. For immediate concern. For offers. Nothing. 10 minutes. 20. 30. I rationalized, * they're busy. Discussing it offline. Checking their schedules, * I tried to watch a baking show, but my eyes kept darting to the silent screen. After 45 agonizing minutes, a message finally popped up. From Heather. LOL. You actually thought we'd miss Cabo for that? We've been planning this trip for months. I reread it, convinced I was missing some dark humor, some hidden context. But before I could even formulate a response, another message. This one from my mother. Don't guilt us, Amber. This trip has been planned for months. Can you reschedule your surgery or ask a friend? The casual, almost flippant cruelty of their responses stole my breath. My fingers hovered. I could explain this was cancer surgery, not an elective manicure. I could list every single time I'd dropped everything for them. I could beg, plead, demand the basic human decency a stranger would offer. Instead, a single, devastating phrase emerged: my mistake. Then, I turned off my phone, curled onto the couch, and sobbed until my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen. Milo, my faithful, furry shadow, pressed against me, the only warmth and comfort in a world that had just turned ice cold. The next morning, I called in sick to my client meeting, a first. I couldn't trust my voice not to break, couldn't maintain a professional facade when I felt utterly shattered. Around noon, I finally turned my phone back on. No new messages in the family chat. Just a missed call from my mother. No voicemail, of course. I considered ignoring it, but knew it would only postpone the inevitable. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I called her back. Amber, she answered immediately, her voice sharp. Are you trying to make me feel bad? Because it's working. Not hello, how are you? Not I'm sorry for my insensitive response. Just accusation. Typical. That wasn't my intention, I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I just needed a ride home from surgery. Well, you dropped this on us out of nowhere, she retorted, launching into a litany of excuses. We have non-refundable deposits. Your father's been looking forward to it all year. Heather needs the break from her stressful job. Jake is meeting his girlfriend's parents for the first time. Each justification was a tiny, sharp knife twisting in my ribs. Every single family member had a reason that mattered. Every reason but me. It's fine, Mom, I said, though it was anything but. I'll figure something out. What kind of surgery is it, anyway? She asked, almost as an afterthought. You never said. A part of me wanted to tell her. To scream the word cancer and watch her carefully constructed world of convenience crumble. To make her see the gravity of what she was so casually dismissing. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe the bitter realization that I shouldn't have to have cancer for my family to care. Just a thyroid thing, I said vaguely. Nothing major. See? You'll be fine, she chirped, instantly relieved. You always are. That's what I love about you, Amber. You're so self-sufficient. After we hung up, I sat there, phone still in hand, wondering when self-sufficiency had become a convenient excuse for emotional abandonment. I scrolled through my contacts, desperate. My friends list had dwindled over the years, sacrificed on the altar of family obligations. The few remaining were out of state or juggling young children. I called my kind, 72-year-old neighbor, Mrs. Patel, who'd already agreed to check on Milo. "I'm so sorry, dear," she'd said. "I'd help if I could, but I don't drive anymore because of my eyesight." A former coworker had a conference. A cousin an hour away couldn't find childcare. Exhausting all options, I researched medical transportation services. They were exorbitant, $300 for a simple pickup and drop-off, but it was my only recourse. I booked it, putting the charge on a credit card already groaning under medical bills my insurance wouldn't fully cover. That night, a text from Jake. The first direct communication. "Hey, sorry about the surgery thing. Bad timing with Cabo and all. Need anything before we leave?" It was the closest any of them had come to concern, but it still utterly missed the mark. He could offer to grab groceries before their trip, but couldn't consider changing his plans for my actual medical crisis. "I'm all set," I replied. "Have fun in Cabo." He sent back a thumbs-up emoji. No further questions. Nothing about my recovery or well-being. The next day, Heather posted in the family chat, "New swimsuit, dressing room selfie." Mom's heart-eye emojis. Dad's comment about her being the prettiest girl on the beach. My surgery, my looming cancer, was an inconvenient footnote, acknowledged and then instantly forgotten, swallowed whole by their vacation excitement. I muted the chat, unable to bear the countdown messages that followed. The emotional distance I'd always felt from my family suddenly became a vast, unbridgeable chasm. I had spent years repeating the mantra, blood is thicker than water. Family is everything. Now, I wondered if I'd been lying to myself all along. With less than 2 weeks until surgery, I channeled my fear into frantic preparation. If I was doing this alone, I would be prepared. I deep-cleaned my tiny apartment until it sparkled, changed my sheets to the softest ones, organized my kitchen so everything was within easy reach, knowing that reaching and lifting would be impossible afterward. I researched post-thyroid surgery diets and stocked up applesauce, yogurt, mashed potatoes, soup, ice cream, popsicles. I even pre-cooked and froze soft meals. My couch became a recovery hub, tissues, lip balm, lozenges, a bell for Mrs. Patel, and a small whiteboard and marker in case my voice was affected. The pharmacy was next, pain meds, gauze, medical tape, throat sprays, cold packs. The pharmacist raised an eyebrow. "Big surgery coming up?" he asked. I just nodded, not trusting my voice. "Good luck," he said kindly. "Make sure whoever is taking care of you knows when to give the medications." I managed a weak smile, clutching my bags. My work also needed attention. I emailed clients, explaining I'd be out for at least a week. Most were understanding, though one expressed frustration at the timing. I worked overtime, staying up until 2 a.m. for several nights, to complete urgent projects. Exhausting, yes, but better than losing clients or income one desperately needed, especially with mounting medical bills. Mrs. Patel, bless her, agreed to check on Milo twice daily and give him his meds. I wrote detailed instructions, portioned his food, even recorded myself calling his name so she could play it if he got lonely. "You think of everything," she said, a sad smile on her face. "But who is thinking of you, dear?" I had no answer. The day before my consultation with Dr. Thompson, Mom called again. "Just checking in before we leave tomorrow," she chirped. "We'll be gone for 10 days. Jake's watching the house, but he'll be at his girlfriend's most nights. Oh, and we're turning off our international data to avoid charges, so we'll only be on Wi-Fi at the resort. I'll send lots of pictures." Not a single mention of my surgery in her 5-minute monologue. When I hung up, I felt a chilling emptiness. Had they truly forgotten? Or were they just deliberately avoiding the subject, a cowardly attempt to minimize their guilt? Dr. Thompson's consultation was sobering. He was a tall man, silver-haired, with a direct manner I strangely appreciated. He explained the procedure with diagrams. Based on the size and nature of your tumor, we will likely need to remove the entire right lobe of your thyroid, and possibly the left as well. He detailed the risks: damage to laryngeal nerves, voice changes, temporary or permanent, bleeding, infection, calcium imbalances, lifelong thyroid hormones. "Do you have any questions?" he asked. I had dozens, but one was paramount. "How bad is the recovery?" "I'll be managing it alone." His eyebrows rose slightly. "Alone? That is not ideal. The first 24 to 72 hours are the most critical. You will be weak from anesthesia, in pain, and there's a small risk of postoperative bleeding that would require immediate medical attention. Is there absolutely no one who can stay with you?" The slight, professional judgment in his tone made me defensive. "I've made arrangements," I said, carefully omitting the details of my elderly neighbor and the expensive medical transport. Dr. Thompson didn't look convinced, but moved on to the informed consent form. "Since you don't have anyone accompanying you today, I'll need you to read it carefully and ask any questions now." My hand was steady as I signed, but inside, I was crumbling. This was real. Cancer surgery. And I was facing it completely alone. As I was leaving, Christine, the nurse who'd assisted Dr. Thompson, followed me into the hallway. "Amber," she said quietly, her voice full of genuine concern. "I couldn't help overhearing that you don't have support for your recovery. I want you to have my direct number. If you have any concerns after surgery, day or night, please call me." Her simple act of kindness nearly broke me. I blinked rapidly, fighting back tears, taking the card she offered. "Thank you," I managed to whisper. "Is there really no family member or friend who could be notified about the severity of your condition?" she pressed gently. "Sometimes people don't understand the seriousness of thyroid cancer." "They're on vacation," I said, the words sounding absurd even to my own ears. "In Cabo. It was planned months ago." Christine's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. "Would you like me to call them?" Sometimes hearing it from a medical professional makes the situation clearer. For a moment, a wild, desperate temptation surged through me. To let her call Mom, to explain every agonizing detail, to force my family to confront their callousness. But my pride, the same stubborn, defiant pride that had kept me self-sufficient all these years, wouldn't allow it. "No," I said firmly, my voice steadier than I felt. "I don't want to ruin their trip. I'll be fine on my own. I always am." As I drove home, Christine's offer replayed in my mind. Why was I protecting people who wouldn't lift a finger for me? Why was I still, even now, prioritizing their happiness over my own well-being? I had no answers, only the familiar, searing ache of being the responsible one, the strong one, the one who never needed anything, even when I desperately needed everything. The morning of my surgery dawned with a spectacular sunrise, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold as I sipped the last water I was allowed. I'd been awake since 4 a.m., too anxious to sleep. Now, at 5:30, I was dressed in loose, comfortable clothes, a button-up shirt ready for post-surgery ease. My hospital bag was packed: phone charger, headphones, lip balm, a small pillow to brace my throat during the ride home. My medical transport was due at 6:15. I checked my phone one last time. Silence. No messages from my family. They were probably enjoying their first full day in Cabo, margaritas by the pool, utterly oblivious to the terror I was facing. The transport arrived precisely on time, a sterile white van, a polite but distant driver. The 20-minute drive to the hospital passed in a silent blur as the city slowly woke up around us. At surgical reception, a kind older woman with purple reading glasses helped with my paperwork. "Is your husband parking the car, honey?" she asked, her voice gentle. "No," I said simply, "I came alone." Her smile faltered, just for a beat. Well, someone is picking you up after, right? You can't drive yourself after anesthesia, hospital policy. I've arranged transport, I assured her. She nodded, handing me a pager. This will buzz when they're ready. You can wait over there. The surgical waiting room was already half full, even at this hour. Spouses, parents, adult children, everyone had someone. Everyone, except me. I found a corner seat, trying to lose myself in a magazine, but the words blurred. Instead, I watched, a husband gently rubbing his wife's back, a daughter holding her elderly father's hand, a couple leaning against each other, drawing silent strength from their connection. When my pager buzzed, a strange mix of dread and relief washed over me. A nurse led me to pre-op, where I changed into a gown and surgical cap. Vitals, for line, identity verification. Is there someone waiting for you? She asked, adjusting my foredrip. No, I said, the word heavy with fatigue. I was tired of the question, tired of the pitying looks it inevitably prompted. She made a note, a slight frown creasing her brow. I was moved to a curtain bay, waiting. Doctors and nurses bustled past, their conversations a comforting, distant hum. Amber Williams? I opened my eyes to see Christine, the nurse from Dr. Thompson's office, standing at the foot of my gurney. Christine? What are you doing here? I mumbled, my voice rough. I assist Dr. Thompson on surgery days, she explained, a warm smile on her face. I wanted to check in on you. How are you feeling? Nervous, I admitted, but ready to get it over with. She checked my chart, adjusting my blanket. I see you're still alone, she noted quietly. As planned, I confirmed. Christine hesitated, then pulled up a stool. Amber, I hope I'm not overstepping, but I'm concerned about your post-operative care. This is not a minor procedure. The first 72 hours are critical for monitoring complications. I have transportation arranged, I repeated, the same hollow reassurance I'd given everyone else. Transportation is one thing. Proper care is another. She leaned closer, her voice gentle but firm. You mentioned your family is in Cabo. Have you told them exactly what this surgery is for? I looked away, the word cancer still a vice around my stomach. No, I admitted. I didn't want to worry them. Christine placed her hand on mine, a small, unexpected gesture that nearly undid me. Amber, I know it's not my place, but I think they should know. If something were to happen, if you were to have complications. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Would you like me to call them? She offered again. As a medical professional, I could explain the situation objectively. I thought about my family, probably at breakfast in some sun-drenched beachside restaurant, laughing, planning their day of leisure. I thought about the bombshell this news would drop. The guilt they might feel. The resentment that guilt might breed. Then, I pictured waking up from anesthesia alone. Struggling into my apartment alone. The terrifying possibility of complications with no one there. Maybe you're right, I conceded, finally. If something does happen, they should know why. Christine squeezed my hand. Do you have a number I can call? I gave her my mother's cell, explaining the international data situation. She'll only get the message when she connects to the resort Wi-Fi. I'll make sure she understands the situation, Christine promised. Now, try to relax. Dr. Thompson is the best, and I'll be right there in the operating room with you. As she walked away, a strange, unexpected lightness settled over me. Whatever happened next, at least I wouldn't be carrying the burden of secrecy anymore. A flurry of medical staff followed, anesthesiologist, surgical resident, Dr. Thompson himself. Then, it was time. They wheeled me into the operating room, a cold, bright, intimidating space. The team moved with practiced efficiency. The anesthesiologist placed a mask over my face. Take deep breaths, Amber. Count backward from 10. I made it to 7 before the darkness claimed me. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, in a quiet corner of a bustling beach resort, Christine was making the call that would change everything. Hello, Mrs. Williams. My name is Christine Reyes. I'm a nurse at Memorial Hospital, working with Dr. Thompson. I'm calling about your daughter, Amber. Sandra Williams, annoyed at the interruption to her meticulously planned vacation, excused herself from the breakfast table. She had no idea the words she was about to hear would make her abandon her perfectly claimed 7 a.m. beach chair, her booked snorkeling excursion, and her 5-star dinner reservation that had required a 2-month waiting list. What do you mean, cancer? Sandra's voice echoed, sharp with disbelief, in the resort hallway. She never said anything about cancer. Christine's voice was professionally calm, but unwavering. Amber has papillary thyroid carcinoma. Dr. Thompson is removing the tumor and likely her entire thyroid gland as we speak. This is a serious procedure with potential complications, including damage to the laryngeal nerves which control the voice box and a risk of post-operative bleeding. But she said it was just a minor procedure. Sandra protested weakly, her bravado crumbling. That she just needed a ride home. Mrs. Williams, Christine continued, her tone firm, your daughter will need close monitoring for at least 72 hours post-surgery. She currently has no one to provide that care. She arranged medical transport and has a neighbor checking in, but that is insufficient for her medical needs. A long, stunned silence stretched across the phone line. I had no idea, Sandra finally whispered, her voice small, filled with a dawning horror. We would never have, if we had known. I understand this is a shock, Christine acknowledged. But there is still time to make arrangements. Amber will be in recovery for several hours. We will be there, Sandra said, her voice now steel. All of us. Thank you for calling, nurse. Thank you for telling us what our daughter would not. As Sandra rushed back to the table, her world utterly upended, Amber lay under anesthesia, completely unaware that the very foundation of her family dynamics was about to shift, dramatically and irrevocably. The journey back to consciousness was a slow, disorienting crawl. My first awareness, a rhythmic beeping. Then, the pain, a burning, throbbing fire across my throat. I tried to swallow, and instantly regretted it. Easy there, a gentle voice cautioned. Try not to swallow too much right now. I blinked, struggling to focus. A recovery room nurse, in blue scrubs, was adjusting my fore. Surgery's all done, she said with practiced cheerfulness. Dr. Thompson will be by once you're more awake. I wanted to ask questions, but my throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. The nurse seemed to understand. Your surgery went well. They removed the entire thyroid, but preserved the parathyroid glands and laryngeal nerves. You're going to be just fine. I gave a tiny nod, a fresh wave of pain searing through my neck. I'll get you some ice chips, she said, patting my hand before stepping away. As my senses slowly returned, I felt a warm pressure on my right hand. Someone was holding it. I turned my head slightly, wincing, and saw a figure slumped in a chair beside my bed, their head resting on the mattress near my arm. My foggy brain took moments to process, dark hair streaked with familiar silver, the chunky turquoise bracelet I'd given her for Mother's Day years ago, the distinctive floral perfume. Mom, I must be hallucinating. My mother was in Cabo, thousands of miles away, sipping margaritas. She couldn't possibly be here, holding my hand, in a recovery room in Chicago. I blinked hard, expecting the vision to vanish. Instead, her head lifted, revealing red-rimmed eyes and tear-stained cheeks. Amber, she whispered, her voice cracking. Oh, sweetheart, you're awake. I stared, confusion warring with the anesthesia fog. I tried to speak, but only a painful croak emerged. Don't try to talk, she urged, grabbing a notepad and pen. The doctor said your throat will be very sore. You can write if you need to tell me something. With a trembling hand, I scrawled a single word, Cabo. Mom's face crumpled. We came back as soon as we heard. Honey, why didn't you tell us it was cancer? Why didn't you tell us how serious it was? Before I could even attempt a response, the recovery room curtain was pulled back. My father's worried face appeared, followed by Jake and Heather. They looked utterly exhausted, rumpled from rushed travel. She's awake, Mom informed them unnecessarily. They crowded around my bed, their faces a messy blend of concern, guilt, and profound relief. Dad reached out, touching my shoulder gently, as if I might shatter. Princess, he said, a nickname he hadn't used since I was 10. We got here as fast as we could. Jake stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed, hands shoved in his pockets. How are you feeling? He asked, then visibly winced at the obvious stupidity of the question. Heather was already openly sobbing. I'm so sorry, Amber. I'm so sorry. I looked from one to another, still not quite believing they were real. I wrote again, how? Mom wiped her eyes. Your nurse called me. Christine. She told us everything. We were on the next flight out of Cabo. My brow furrowed, processing this through the haze. Christine had called them. And they had come. They had abandoned their vacation, their non-refundable deposits, their meticulously laid plans. For me. The recovery room nurse returned with ice chips, her expression a mix of surprise and satisfaction at the sudden crowd. Well, looks like you have quite the support team now, she remarked, helping me with a small spoonful of ice. We're her family, Mom stated firmly. We'll be taking care of her. The nurse nodded approvingly, and an uncomfortable silence settled over the group as she left. Years of unspoken issues hung in the air, temporarily overshadowed by the crisis, but far from erased. I picked up the notepad again, my hand still shaking. You didn't have to come. Mom read it, looking stricken. Of course we did. You're our daughter. You have cancer, Dad corrected quickly. The doctor told us they got it all out. I flipped to a new page. What about your trip? Screw the trip. Jake burst out, his vehemence uncharacteristic. It's just a vacation. Heather nodded, still sniffling. We can go to Cabo anytime. You needed us. I wanted to point out that I had always needed them. That this wasn't the first time I'd reached out. But my throat screamed with pain, and the anesthesia made coherent thought impossible. Instead, I wrote, "Thank you for coming." It was the polite thing to say, the expected response from good old reliable Amber, who never made waves. But something had fundamentally shifted inside me during those lonely days of facing cancer. The terrifying realization that I might have died without my family ever truly seeing me had ignited a dormant anger, a slow burn that even their current presence couldn't fully extinguish. Dr. Thompson arrived, clipboard in hand, his silver hair neatly combed. He nodded approvingly at my assembled family before turning to me. The surgery went very well, Amber. We removed the entire thyroid gland, as the cancer had spread to both lobes, but it was contained within the thyroid capsule. No evidence of lymph node involvement. You'll need radioactive iodine treatment as a precaution, but the prognosis is excellent. He continued, detailing my treatment plan, medications, follow-up schedule. My family listened intently. Mom took furious notes, Dad asked detailed questions, Jake and Heather hovered, eyes fixed on him. It was surreal, seeing them all so utterly engaged in my care after years of feeling invisible. I am particularly glad to see you have support at home, Dr. Thompson concluded, glancing at my family. The first few days of recovery are challenging, and it's important not to be alone. Mom straightened in her chair, her voice resolute. She won't be alone for a minute. We'll take care of everything. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by a storm of conflicting emotions, immense relief that I wasn't alone, searing anger that it had taken cancer to make my family show up, gratitude for their presence, bitter resentment that it had been so conditional. Love and hurt were so deeply intertwined, I couldn't separate them. When I opened my eyes again, Dr. Thompson had left, and my family was already deep in logistical planning. Who would stay at my apartment? Who would pick up prescriptions? Who would manage follow-up appointments? I can take family leave from work, Mom was saying. I have plenty of sick days. I'll postpone my interviews, Jake offered, they can wait. I can reschedule my yoga classes, Heather added. My students will understand. They were making plans as if their availability had never been in question. As if they hadn't all flat out refused me just days ago. The cognitive dissonance was too much. I picked up the notepad again, my hand trembling with more than just post-surgical weakness. In large, uneven letters, I wrote, "Where were you when I asked?" I held up the page, drawing their attention. The conversation stopped dead. An agonizing silence descended. Amber, Mom began hesitantly, we didn't understand how serious it was. I flipped to a new page. You never asked. You said it was just a thyroid thing, Dad protested weakly. You didn't say it was cancer. Another page. You didn't care enough to ask. Tears streamed down my face now, the emotional dam finally, irrevocably broken. Years of being overlooked, of being taken for granted, of being the reliable one who never needed anything. It all poured out in those stark, written words. Jake looked down, unable to meet my eyes. You're right, he admitted quietly, his voice thick with shame. I saw your message and just thought. I don't know what I thought. That it was routine, I guess. That you'd handle it, like you handle everything. We've taken you for granted, Mom said, her voice choked with emotion. For years, we've relied on your strength without ever considering what it cost you. Heather was openly sobbing now, her face streaked. I've been so selfish, Amber. So wrapped up in my own life that I didn't see how much you were carrying alone. Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the raw emotional outpouring, but he made the effort. We failed you, Princess. Not just with this surgery. For a long time. Their acknowledgments, though long awaited, didn't feel vindicating. They just made me profoundly tired. I had imagined this moment so many times, my family finally recognizing their unfairness. But the reality was messy, painful, complicated by my physical vulnerability and their raw, genuine remorse. I wrote one last message, my hand cramping with the effort. I needed you before this, too. Mom read it, nodding, tears falling onto her cheeks. I know. And we weren't there. We can't change that, but we're here now, and we want to do better. Will you let us try? It wasn't a simple question, and I didn't have a simple answer. The hurt ran too deep for easy resolution. But as I looked at their faces, truly contrite, truly present, I realized I had a choice. I could cling to my justified anger, or I could accept this imperfect, fragile beginning of change. I gave a small, cautious nod. Mom squeezed my hand gently. Thank you for giving us another chance. We don't deserve it, but we'll work to earn it. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly seen by my family. Not as the reliable middle child who never needed anything, but as a person with needs, hurts, and a fundamental right to be prioritized. It wasn't a Hollywood ending, not yet. There would be difficult conversations, old patterns to break, new boundaries to establish. But it was a start. The next few weeks were a strange, beautiful new reality. My apartment, usually quiet save for Milo's occasional meows, became a hub of family activity. Mom moved into my spare room. Dad came daily, bringing homemade food and tackling household tasks. Jake and Heather took shifts, ensuring someone was always with me during those critical first days of recovery. My throat healed slowly, the angry red line across my neck gradually softening to pink. My voice, initially hoarse and weak, strengthened day by day. The exhaustion from surgery and adjusting to new thyroid medication kept me sleeping much of the time at first, but as my energy returned, so did the need for conversations too long delayed. It happened organically, one evening, about 2 weeks post-surgery. Mom and I were sitting in my living room, she knitting, me sketching idly, when I finally asked the question that had simmered between us. "Why did it take something this serious for you to see me?" Mom's hands stilled, the rhythmic clicking of her knitting needles falling silent. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I think," she said slowly, choosing her words with immense care, "we fell into roles a long time ago. Heather was the baby who needed protection. Jake was the son who needed guidance. And you were the one who had it together. The one who didn't need us." "I always needed you," I said, my voice still slightly raspy with lingering soreness. "Just because I didn't fall apart doesn't mean I wasn't struggling." Mom nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I know that now. I think part of me knew it then, too. But acknowledging it would have meant admitting how unfair we were being, how much we were taking from you without giving back." She set her knitting aside and looked directly at me. "Your father and I have been talking a lot about this. About how we've treated you differently. It wasn't right, and there's no excuse. But if you're willing to hear it, I'd like to explain some things. Not to justify, just to understand." I nodded, bracing myself. "When you were born, you were such an easy baby," she began. "So self-sufficient. Even then, you'd play happily by yourself, rarely cried, hit all your milestones early. We marveled at how independent you were. Then came Jake, who was colicky and demanding, and later Heather, who was premature and needed extra care." She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I'd observed countless times throughout my childhood. "Somehow, we started seeing your self-sufficiency not as a quality to nurture, but as permission to focus elsewhere. When you handled things on your own, we felt proud rather than concerned. We mistook your competence for invulnerability." It was a revelation, hearing her articulate what I had felt but never fully understood. My strength had, in our family dynamic, become my greatest weakness. "I'm not invulnerable," I said quietly. "I've been drowning for years." "I know," Mom acknowledged, reaching for my hand. "And I'm so sorry we didn't see it. Or worse, that we saw glimpses but looked away because it was easier." The conversation opened a floodgate. Over the following days, similar, raw discussions occurred with Dad, with Jake, with Heather. Sometimes heated, sometimes tearful, always necessary. I spoke my truth without filtering it to spare their feelings, something I'd never allowed myself before. "I gave you my savings," I reminded Jake, during one particularly difficult conversation. $15,000 that I was saving for art school. You never paid it back. Never even acknowledged what it cost me." Jake, to his credit, didn't become defensive. "I took advantage of you," he admitted, his voice low with shame. "I knew you wouldn't say no. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I want to make it right." He presented me with a repayment plan, modest monthly installments that would eventually return my money with interest. It wasn't a quick fix, but it was acknowledgement and accountability, which meant more than the money itself. Heather and I had our moment of reckoning while she was driving me to a follow-up appointment. "I've been jealous of you," she confessed, surprising me. "You're so capable, so put together. I always felt like the mess by comparison." "I'm not put together," I told her, my gaze fixed on the passing scenery. "I'm just good at pretending, and everyone made it clear that's what was expected of me." She nodded, her eyes fixed on the road. "I'm trying to understand my role in all this. I think I liked having you as the responsible one because it let me off the hook. I could be the fun sister, the spontaneous one, while you handled the hard stuff. That's not fair to either of us," I pointed out. "You're an adult. You should get to be responsible sometimes. And I should get to fall apart occasionally without the world ending." "You're right," she agreed, a small, genuine smile forming. I want to be someone you can rely on, Amber. I want to be a real sister, not just someone who takes. The final test of these new dynamics came 6 weeks after my surgery. When I received my pathology report following the radioactive iodine treatment, I had asked my family to come to my apartment for the discussion. They all arrived promptly, faces anxious but supportive. We sat in my small living room as I opened the envelope. No evidence of residual cancer, I read aloud, a wave of profound relief washing over me. Regular monitoring recommended, but prognosis excellent. The collective exhale was audible. Mom wiped away tears. Dad squeezed my shoulder. Jake and Heather exchanged relieved glances. We should celebrate, Heather suggested. Maybe dinner at that Italian place you like. Actually, I said, gathering my courage, I wanted to talk to you all about something else first. I told them about the art school in New York that still interested me, about researching online programs that would let me earn my degree while maintaining my freelance business, about my dream that had been deferred but never abandoned. In the old family dynamic, this announcement would have been met with dismissal, or perhaps token encouragement masking actual disapproval. But something had fundamentally shifted between us. That's wonderful, Amber, Mom said sincerely. What can we do to help make this happen? Tell us what you need, Dad added, his voice firm. We're all in. Jake offered to help me build a website showcasing my portfolio. Heather volunteered to connect me with a friend who had attended the same program. They were engaged, interested, supportive, in practical ways, not just with empty words. 6 months after my surgery, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, examining the now faint, silvery line across my neck, I reflected on how much had changed. My family wasn't perfect. We still had moments of falling into old patterns, still had disagreements and miscommunications. But there was a fundamental difference. I was visible now. My needs mattered. My boundaries were respected. I had learned to speak up without apology, to ask for help without shame, to express disappointment without fear. And my family? They had learned to listen, to show up consistently, to give back in proportion to what they received. The strangest part was that I didn't regret what happened. Not the cancer, certainly, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But I didn't regret Christine making that call, forcing the truth into the open. Sometimes, it takes the prospect of losing something to truly recognize its value. For my family, the terrifying possibility of losing me made them finally see me, perhaps for the very first time. And for me, facing my own mortality helped me understand that being strong doesn't mean being alone. That self-sufficiency is admirable only when it's a choice, not when it's the only option. That family means nothing if it's conditional. I don't know what would have happened if I had told them myself about the cancer from the beginning. Maybe they would have cancelled their trip willingly. Maybe they still would have found a way to rationalize going. It's a question without an answer. What I do know is that sometimes, a painful truth is the only thing that can break through years of comfortable illusions. For my family, hearing from Christine that I had cancer while they were on a beach in Cabo was the brutal, necessary wake-up call they needed. For me, their response, dropping everything to be by my side, was the proof that beneath years of neglect and taking me for granted, there was love worth salvaging. I no longer measure my worth by what I can give to others, or how little I need in return. I've learned that true strength isn't found in silence or self-sacrifice, but in honesty and mutual support. Sometimes, letting people see your vulnerability is the bravest thing you can do. I don't regret that phone call. Sometimes a painful truth is what saves a relationship that truly matters. Have you ever experienced a moment when something difficult, even heartbreaking, ultimately led to profound healing or transformation in your family? Share your story in the comments below, I really want to know. And if this resonated with you, please like this video and hit that subscribe button. It truly helps others find these stories of resilience and hope. Remember, sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones most worth having. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it inspires you to speak your truth, whatever it may be.